All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? How's everyone doing out there? Today, I got a repeat guest, Mr. Alain Leon. He's here today to talk about something different than last time. We're talking about cryptocurrency and what's going on in the markets and everything related to the space. If you don't know Alain, he's a friend of mine, technologist, a philosopher, just an overall critical thinker, someone who likes to analyze the world, and I really appreciate his input and insight. So, with that said, welcome Align.
Thank you. That's very, very kind of you for that intro.
All right, yeah,
I'll take
yeah.
it. I'll take it.
All right, dude. So I say we get straight off to the big news of the week, and that is Mr. Elon Musk. Putting 1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin on his balance sheet. Obviously, I'm getting texts and phone calls, and there's
Yeah.
all this excitement happening. And so let's just start off with that. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, it's just Elon to the rescue, right? The funny thing is, I'm on some crypto chat rooms and stuff, and I was asking one of my friends, is like, why is he talking about Doge? Doge is, started out as a joke. It's not really going anywhere. Like what's behind the messaging? I don't really get it. And I don't know if it was like, he first does that change where he puts that, bio, says Bitcoin on his bio and he takes it off. It's kind of wondering if it was like before it became official, he was trying to send us messages through the tea leaves. Hey, this is what's happening. But so one thing that I see a lot of that's not mentioned. I mean, it's mentioned in the news, but I don't think they give it the importance it deserves, is that it wasn't Elon, it was Tesla, right? It's different from Elon putting down 1.5 billion of his own capital, of his own personal stash, and putting it in a safe, than Tesla doing it. Tesla is, a big deal right now. They're a Fortune 500 company. They got added to the S&P 500. I'm sure this had to go through the board, through the whole thing. This is bigger than just Elon. Having Tesla done it, that's way bigger, in my opinion. Now, obviously, people mention it, but I think, and you know, Elon is, I would say, he's probably the one that made it happen, right? But it still has to go through the official channels within the company, and that's big news. So the question is right now, is this the watershed moment, right? Because everybody kept talking about before this news, the biggest news. What was the biggest news? Biggest company that had
Michael
done it.
Saylor.
Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy, but every,
Where?
yeah, a Square, but Square was a much smaller amount, right? It's not, we're not talking billions here. Now Elon just changes the conversation. Elon and Tesla, really, right?
Mm-hmm.
This thing changes the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, like, what I mean by that is, before, when we would have these conversations about, let's say, people would ask you, oh, convince me, or what, why is Bitcoin this or Bitcoin that? Now it's like, you almost don't have to say anything. You can just say, hey, listen, Tesla just bought 1.5 billion. If you want to argue with them.
So
you,
that I posted that. I was like, Elon basically came out and said that Bitcoin is the future, and that
yeah.
basically just came out praising Bitcoin and saying that it's the future. And so do you own Bitcoin? And if you don't own Bitcoin, what is it that you know that Elon doesn't know? Because
Yeah, it's like the tables have turned now. It's like completely different, right? It's like, listen, if you want to argue with a guy that's like single-handedly electrifying the earth, and then has completely revolutionized spaceships, you got like the spaceships landing like you saw in like the comic books and stuff, and
yeah, yeah.
hey, go do that. I'm not gonna do that. It's kind of funny now to see that. Yeah, so
Yeah, I
that's
just, I
good.
just, I just want to expand a little bit on what you said, give my input on that. So this is where we're seeing, I feel like, the financialization wave of Bitcoin, the institutional wave of Bitcoin, kind of both of those happening at the same time. We have, institutional grade custodians coming in that are allowing these Fortune 500 companies to secure Bitcoin in a way that provides, assurance that their Bitcoin are going to be safe. So that's a huge thing. And then also on the regulatory front, there's been a lot of work there. So just over the past like 3 to 4 years behind the scenes, away from the hype, from the bubbles, from all of that stuff, there's just been a lot of work behind the scenes to build the institutional rails that allow for something like this to happen. And all it took was for Michael Saylor to come out, basically figure out the playbook, and make a huge statement by not only taking 100% of his balance sheet cash reserves and putting it into Bitcoin, but then tapping the credit markets, borrowing another 650 million, right?
Yeah.
And then basically create,
That's a big move there. It's a difference between, Tesla put 1.5, and I think like out of their total was like 19 or something. Then to
so
go all in,
it's 8%. From what I saw, it was like 7 to 8% of their balance sheet for Tesla, but MicroStrategy put in 100% of their balance sheet. And so so Michael Saylor basically created the playbook. Not only that, but he was able to articulate it in a way in which an engineer or someone could understand. He really brought that perspective to Bitcoin, which I think was missing. And then also the CEO aspect of it as well. He's like, basically, hey man, I'm sitting on a melting ice cube over here. If I want my company to succeed into the future, I got to figure out what to do with this. And then he just compared Bitcoin to all these other asset classes: gold, real estate, treasuries, stock market. And he was like, hey man, basically Bitcoin is a no-brainer. And it's just something that just makes perfect sense. And then if you look at the history behind it, it's been tested, it's been tried, and it's given me the confidence enough to put my entire cash balance into it. And now what you have is Elon Musk, right? Entrepreneur extraordinaire, coming into the mix, and basically the world's richest man, the man who's trying to go to Mars, just on everyone's radar, basically coming out with a huge statement by saying, hey, yeah, actually this Bitcoin stuff, it's a real deal. And like, this is something that's necessary, to the point that we're going to put 8% of our cash balance into it. And that, I feel like, is going to open up the floodgates for all CEOs now. It de-risked the idea of having a position in Bitcoin for all CEOs and corporate executives at this moment, because now you could just say, I'm just doing what Elon does. How are you going to fault me? I'm doing what the world's richest man has done. I'm doing what this extraordinary entrepreneur has done. So it's like, now it's almost a risk not to put some of your cash reserves into Bitcoin. Say, hey, dummy, why didn't you put any cash reserves into Bitcoin? I mean, Elon's doing it. What did you think? You're smarter than him? So it's almost like a liability now for corporate executives not to take a position in Bitcoin. And I just, Michael Saylor just gave basically a conference to 1,000 executives, 1,000 or more executives in the CEOs to CFOs to all types of people, and basically just opened up his playbook and said, here, this is how you do it. And now Elon is coming on the back of that. And I'm just trying to fathom the tidal wave of capital that is about to rush into Bitcoin at the time when there is a supply shock, right? We just had the halving happen in 2020. So, we only got 900 Bitcoins being produced a day, right? And you could see the outflows from the exchanges happening right now. And I mean, we're getting to all-time lows. So there's a huge supply shock. And, you just think about the laws of supply and demand. When you got this wave of capital about to come in, and you got a very limited supply, it's going to put upward pressure on price. And I guess that's the next place we can take this conversation to. What do you see happening there with price? And, if you want to throw in your perspective on Plan B and his model and that situation, that'd be interesting too.
So price, I try to stay away from that. It's you never know with Bitcoin, right? But definitely, like you say, there is on the supply side is very limited now, and what's happening is not just it's not just Tesla and Michael Saylor. You also have Grayscale, right? So Grayscale has been there, and it's been a vehicle for a lot of companies that cannot invest straight out in Bitcoin, right? So there's still a lot of rules and a lot of regulations, and even if it's just within a certain company that they need to follow. So Grayscale has been a great system as well. To go back on price, it's just tough, right? All I could say definitely is that um, yeah, supply is limited, and this is a moment where we're sort of, as a lot of people say, is this the moment the snowball starts rolling down the mountain? You know, all the factors are there. The other good question that I ask myself is this the moment that Bitcoin again goes mainstream, right? Because up until now, we keep talking about, investment, from the investment class, but we keep forgetting or not talking about the mainstream. And mainstream is going to start picking. If there's anything that's going to like wake them up, it's going to be Tesla buying Bitcoin, right? Because Tesla has already been all over the place. It's like whatever, almost $900. Every single investor in Robinhood knows
It's a
about
household. It's a
the
household
house.
brand.
Everybody talks
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So this I feel has the power to bring that back into the collective memory of the mainstream. And we remember how it was, back in 2017, 2018, when the mainstream got a hold of Bitcoin. We were just being called left and right. And if that happens, then you know price valuations it just gets ridiculous, right? We get into some even way greater bubble. God only knows. But that's my question right now, is like, will this awaken the mainstream folk?
So I have a very similar I was talking to a friend last night about, Elon's angle with Doge. I couldn't figure it out. And we were like,
Like, why
I was
is
like,
this, man?
was he doing that to drive down the price to fill his bags? And I was like, man, if he did that, that's such a shady thing to do. So I was like, I couldn't imagine him doing that. You know what I mean? So I was like, I wonder if it was just something, Elon's just eccentric as it is by himself, and he's starting to, I think, realize the power he has, with the Twitter and just shaking things up. And
Yeah.
so I wonder if it was just something playful. I couldn't figure out the angle that he was coming at it from. But what I did notice is that all of a sudden I got people calling me and texting me about Doge, and I'm like, oh my God, what is Elon doing?
I,
It's like
I,
I feel like he's leading the blind off the cliff. And
yeah.
it's like they
I
don't realize. They're like, tell me about this new crypto Doge. I'm like, no, it's not a new crypto. It's been a
still
while.
arguing against Elon, right? Now
Yeah.
we know how it feels.
Yeah. And I'm like, and now
Yeah.
like Elon is directly impacting my life. And like,
Yeah, it's like,
yeah.
what's going on here?
So
I don't know what to make of it. I think I actually, first of all, let's say I don't think it was malicious.
mhm,
I think so. He wasn't, he's a busy man, sending rockets to Mars and electrifying the world. So he wasn't really into crypto. Really wasn't his thing for a long time. Let's say it like it is, right? He had
mhm,
his attention elsewhere. So I think he started out with the Deutsch thing a long time ago. It wasn't even just now, right?
mhm.
And he was just going along with it. I think by now, when he starts saying Doge and then he puts Bitcoin on his bio and then he takes it off, I think he was trying to send signals, right? He can't come out and say before it's official, hey, Tesla's buying Bitcoin.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's already gotten in trouble with the FCC, right? Go with his
Yeah,
Twitter.
yeah.
So I
Mhm.
don't think it was malicious. I don't really think he was talking about Deutsch. I think it's my personal opinion. I think he was just trying to sort of let people know before it was official, you know?
Got you. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm just we were just kind of trying to figure out the angle there, but yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine it being malicious, but it definitely had some side effects there that were very
Yeah, you had to
annoying.
deal with it. I had a
Yeah.
friend. So during the previous run, people were calling us whatnot, and I had a
Mhm.
friend who I told him buy some Bitcoin, right?
Mhm.
What does he do? He opens a Coinbase account. He comes back to me and he says, "Oh, I bought Litecoin." I'm like, I didn't. I told you to buy Bitcoin. But he was like, no, but Bitcoin was too expensive, so I just bought Litecoin, right? I'm sure you got a lot of that too, right? And I'm like, that's not what was happening. So the interesting thing is now, right? 3 years now, he calls me up and he's like, hey, I'm selling my Litecoin and I'm buying Doge. And I'm like, no, you're not doing this to me again. I like video chatted with him last night. I was like,
You had a little
no,
sit down.
listen, if Bitcoin is still too expensive, even after this whole Tesla thing, right?
Yeah.
Is that you have these options. You have Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano, which are my three major picks, along with BNB, which I always love. You know, it's like BNB is just
Yeah.
uh, it's there for me. Yeah.
So I just want to say real quick for anybody listening, this none of this stuff is investment advice. Um, and you know, personally, the way I tell
Just two guys
people,
talking.
the way I tell people about altcoins is, before, so Bitcoin is by sure the surest, it has the most clear value proposition. And it is by far the surest investment that you could make. And everything else, unless you have 1,000 hours to invest in doing the research and trying to understand the fundamental drivers behind the altcoins, whatever altcoin it is that you're looking into, and unless you're able to trade the markets, you know I would not mess with altcoins whatsoever.
That's a good point. Just also yesterday, right? Because now, and this is why I was asking, does this have the potential to make it mainstream? I had another friend also talking about it, and he was like, he didn't want to mess with it. I had been talking to him about Bitcoin before, and he was like, this was it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna get in. It's like, what do I get? He asked me just like this, what do I get that I can buy and not have to worry about for 10 years? I told him
Mhm. Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. It's just
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
he's
And that's what I'm saying. And,
And then he was like, what about Ethereum? And I was like, because I know where those things come from. I'm like, listen, and so I know this person. I know he really will just buy and just forget about it. He's not one of those that tells you they'll buy and then they're calling you, messaging you every other day. I was like, listen, if you want to get some Ethereum, and here's where it starts getting complicated. Here's where I think your advice of just buy Bitcoin and just forget about it, and just like I keep telling one of my friends, Luke, just buy Bitcoin and go play volleyball for 3 years.
Mhm.
Because I told him to go buy Bitcoin, and then now he's like buying and selling and doing the whole Robin Hood, I'm a day trader type of deal. And I'm over here like, oh my God.
So that only leads to horror stories. And that's what I'm saying. For the average person who doesn't have the time to invest in all of this stuff and becoming basically an expert, that's what Bitcoin is for. It's there to,
It's
it's
very
there.
simple. It's
Yeah,
very
it's there
simple.
to
Like
be
you said, the
some.
value proposition is simple. It's just wealth store, just nothing else.
Don't complicate your life. It's one of these things where there's only 21 million Bitcoin that will ever exist. So whatever you own, just divide it by 21 million. That's your ownership. It's never going to change. The way that's designed, it's not going to change. Your percentage ownership of the network isn't going to change. So, and it's designed to basically go up in value over time. It's a monetary asset whose design is completely different than the dollar, who's designed to lose value over time. So it's like, and then maybe there are some risk factors there which you're unsure of. Maybe you think the government is going to stop it, or maybe this and that. That's fine. So you don't have to invest the whole enchilada, man. You could just,
Yeah.
you could do 50. So I just came across a tweet where it was this gentleman on Twitter who basically said, I got a whole Bitcoin. I didn't start off buying a whole Bitcoin. All I did was invest $50 every Saturday since 2018. And now I got over a whole Bitcoin. And, that's a really easy approach to investing in Bitcoin. And,
Yeah.
over time, you're going to build your stack of
Even now.
Satoshis.
Yeah. Even
Yeah.
now. Yeah. Even
Yeah.
now.
I
Yeah.
see
Because
Bitcoin I see it as a long-term savings vehicle. And if you just treat it like a digital piggy bank and, put some of your hard-earned wealth into it, doesn't have to be the whole thing, and just stack your sats slowly over time, you will see that over the years that the amount of purchasing power that Bitcoin provides is going to increase.
Yeah.
That is if there isn't anything catastrophic that happens, but the likelihood of that happening, that's the other thing I want to talk about is the Lindy effect. Every day that Bitcoin exists is another day that it's more likely that it will exist in the future. And so, especially now, when you get all these corporations and all these institutions and all these people now investing in Bitcoin, it's going to be very hard for governments to convince people that this is a bad thing and that it should be banned. So that's the other thing. I mean, every day that Bitcoin exists, it just makes it more likely that it will exist in the future. And so, it's just one of those things where you just factor in your risk and you approach Bitcoin in a very simple manner. And in the future, you know, you there is a likelihood that you're going to be rewarded for that approach.
Yeah, yeah. And that was one of the this conversation here reminds me of that there was an interview moment with Chamath. So for those who aren't aware of Chamath, Chamath is another well, he's been all over CNBC. He's not quite as famous as Elon, but he's definitely been out there a lot. And in one of his interviews with Laura Shin, I believe, is like people started making fun of him because she was like, well, what about DeFi? And he was like, what DeFi? Who? What? Like he didn't even know like what she was talking about. And later on, referring to that, it was like, listen, he just makes his investment outlook for Bitcoin is just very simple, right? He just goes again over the simplest parts of it. It's a store of wealth and so on and so forth. It's like it's the Apple of the smartphones. It's just gonna last. So that he doesn't have his mind on all this other stuff that's going on. Obviously, he's a very busy man as well, but his initial philosophy and understanding of it was just, this is it. Like, this is simple. It is digital money. It's not meant to inflate. For now, it's inflating until it gets to 21 million, and then that'll be that. And that's how he was able to grab 1 million Bitcoins at around an average price of $100, because that simple mindset just says,
He has that many Bitcoin?
this is, yeah, he has 1 million Bitcoins. He finally let it out of the bag.
Really?
He's got
That's
1 million
interesting.
Bitcoins. Yeah. Yeah, he's
Yikes.
probably one of the biggest whales around.
Oh, wow.
But for sure, he's one of the biggest whales around.
Yeah. So, I guess, moving on there, let's move on to, Miami. That's where you're at, right?
Yeah, that's we're over here. The Mayor Suarez is making waves in the crypto universe for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
So for
so,
those who don't know, the mayor of Miami, the city of Miami, has been, he posted first the white paper to the site, to the official Miami site, saying, hey, like, this is like, he's recognizing it as official money, as we were talking about. He's working his way to having Miami have Bitcoin for the treasury. He's also trying to pull some of the talent from New York. A lot of folks are locked up on lockdown over there due to the
mhm.
coronavirus, looking for other places to go. So along with that, he's also trying to pull in some of that crypto talent into over here into Miami. But yeah, he's making big push to have Miami be one of the first cities to have Bitcoin in the treasury, which would be yet another great, like, big moment if that happens, right? Like, when now the question becomes is, okay, so now we had Michael Saylor, which he did it, but it's a little bit of a on the edge type of guy. But then once Tesla does it, then that's a watershed moment for companies and institutions to do the same. Now is like the onus is on them to explain why this is a good or a bad move. Like, they actually have to talk about it. The conversation is on the table. You have to talk about it. Before, they weren't. A lot of folks probably.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, yeah, and I think I scratched on that point, but that's a good way of saying it. It's like the onus is on them,
To
and
talk
it's
about it. They
like
got to talk about it.
he forced the issue.
Yeah,
Elon
it's like
forced
before
the
the issue,
issue.
a lot of places weren't having the conversation. It's not that they were saying that it was bad, it's that it hadn't even gotten to the level where they would analyze it and say, oh, yeah, this is bad. You know, now it's like, here it is.
Mhm.
And now, so the next question becomes, when are we going to have a government agency, which is essentially what a city is, right? Some type of official
So
jurisdiction added, do the same, added to the treasury.
that's going to happen apparently, like from what I saw from Mayor Suarez. That's happening soon. He's bringing it up for like a resolution on the council, or I don't know the wording there, but basically, and then Elon gave him a lot of steam to work with there,
Yeah,
and
yeah, you
so
got backup now.
yeah, so I mean, it's pretty amazing to me seeing how fast this is happening, not only with like Fortune 500 companies, but now we're seeing major cities and municipalities like Miami coming to the forefront, where they're willing to put some of their treasury reserves into Bitcoin. And not only that, but they're also looking to possibly pay employees in Bitcoin if they so choose to accept their salary that way. And so, like, you're seeing hyper Bitcoinization happen all around us, like, and it's happening on all fronts. And again, this is just more into that, it's going. Bitcoin is like a hydra, bro. It's like,
Yeah,
you cut off one head and then another one grows back, or two grow back. And it's like, you know, the other part about that is that it's just permeating society. And it's like, it's like water, man. And it's just finding all the ways in which it could seep into society and fix inefficiencies in the economy. And, that is happening at a rapid pace, and it's global. That's the other thing. This is global phenomenon happening. And like I said, with the Hydra situation, I think there was Nigeria, the Central Bank of Nigeria, or one of these African countries that are basically are coming down hard on Bitcoin.
yeah.
And but at the same time, they asked one of the guys there, well, what about Bitcoin? Why don't you ban it? And he's like, well, we looked into that, but we can't stop it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so it's interesting, right? So like Nigeria, you could see why they would have, an issue with it. But so the other big news is, right, that India is banning it. So India is going to go that route, and now we're gonna see how that works out for them. You know,
so
when
I
China
always
tried to
thought,
do it, it did not work out very well for them, right? A lot of the miners just packed up and left. CZ was in China and he saw the routing on the wall and he said, you know what, me and Binance, we're out of here. So I think that the India announcement of of their want to not have cryptocurrencies in the country, that's big news, and we're going to see how that plays out.
so
I don't think it'll play out well for them, but we'll see.
let me so this is interesting, because what I always figured is that this is a risk for governments, because once you ban Bitcoin and you make that statement, it's kind of like the emperor has no clothes situation. Because if you ban Bitcoin and it doesn't go away and it only comes back stronger, and like, it just shows how limited the government's power is.
Yeah,
And so it's a huge risk to go that route, try to ban Bitcoin and not succeed, because then people are like, oh, wait a second, the emperor has no clothes. Like, you
yeah,
know,
like they weren't able to do something about it. So, and it's also important to distinguish what it means, whether they'll be successful or not, because, they're not going to be, obviously, this is not going to stop Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form. But the
mhm.
question does become, does that stop their citizens from acquiring Bitcoin and using it? Because that's really their goal, right? So remember, some time ago, they outlawed the previous currency, and then
Mhm.
India outlawed their entire currency, and they instituted a new currency. And they said, by
Mhm.
this time, if you don't bring in all your old money that you had stored under your mattress, that will not be legal anymore. So
Mhm.
they're almost doing something similar like this with cryptocurrency. They're probably thinking, a lot of folks, they started switching to cryptocurrencies. So it'll be interesting to see if there's like a big thriving black market for cryptocurrencies in
Oh, there
India.
is. There is going to be 100% because I mean, like this is, being able to secure your wealth, being able to store the time value of your labor. I mean, that's a human need. It's just something that's ingrained in us. Like, we go to work, we want to have some value for that work. And so it's like, you're going to find every way, like in Argentina, what they were doing to hold value is they bought Mercedes and
Yeah.
because they're like, the money that I'm getting paid in is losing value.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I gotta find somehow to stash it. So I think it's a natural human phenomenon. And of course there's going to be a huge black market that emerges in India for Bitcoin. And I mean, Bitcoin makes it really easy for a black market to emerge. I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's banned in some South American countries, but yet it's thriving on local Bitcoins and other like black market exchanges. Um,
And
but
my guess is they're going to have a really tough time stamping it out. Unlike paper money and even gold is just, it's very tough to control cryptocurrencies, especially when the rest of the world seems to be embracing it, right? So,
so
here,
that's
yeah,
I just want to say something to that point. So that's the other point I was going to make. And that is the problem. The other problem is not only do you risk that you are not able to ban Bitcoin and it exposes kind of just how incompetent the government is, but there's also a risk where, you really set your country back and impoverish it. It's like banning the internet, and you like you said, you risk a brain drain, and you risk all the entrepreneurs, all the businessmen leaving the country because I mean, this is the future. And it's like, if we cannot interact with the future, then
yeah.
we,
Particularly if you think about India. So, even if they can't ban it, right? That law, that attitude towards it will still have massive effects for them, because if you think about it, what does India export a lot when it comes to talent? It's a lot of engineers, right? They're very famous for their space programs, one of the cheapest space programs. Even Elon has praised them many times. Over here, we get a lot of developers, obviously. So now what happens is, if they go that route, then officially the schools can't be, teaching people how to do illegal stuff. you know so
mm-hmm,
it's like, what do you do in the universities? You can't have classes on crypto.
mm-hmm.
It just sometimes they don't see the unintended consequences. If they say it
Well,
could still
that's
have a big
funny.
effect on their population, even if it doesn't end up having the effect that they want, which is to actually ban it or limit its use.
Yeah.
We'll see how this plays out. India definitely is,
I
it's going
think
to be
it's just, I think at this point, it's just power structures trying to hold on to whatever they can.
yeah,
And, they're grasping at whatever they can to hold on. But, the inevitability of it, whether it's, next year, 5 years or 10 years, I think it's just a rising tide. You can't, you can't stop this. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens there, but,
yeah.
yeah. So what's up? You got anything else on the agenda here? Oh, let's talk about one of your favorites, Mr. Oh man, how do you say his name? Chow CZ. How do you say his
Oh
name?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Champagne Zhao.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just call. I
So
think everybody just calls him ZZ. Yeah. So I don't know what. First of all, if anybody's keeping track,
so it's at 110 right now. BNB is at 110.
you see that chart? Did you
Yeah.
pull it up?
Let me
It's like
see.
it's like doubled in the past. I don't know, like 36 hours. I don't even know.
Oh yeah,
A
it's
long
definitely
time now.
here. Let me see if I can share my screen here.
Yeah, it
So
went
you
from like 44 to 105. It's insane.
and yeah. And by the way, like for those that are getting distracted because I'm looking away, and this
Yeah.
goes to you, Alain. I'm doing the research, like I'm young Jamie, and,
Yeah, yeah, you're not the research
and
guy today.
yeah,
You are the research guy.
yeah. So, but yeah. Anyways, it's just straight parabolic,
Yeah,
and
it literally went from like $44 to 105 in 2 days or something like that, 2 or 3 days.
Hmm.
I don't know what is going on. Obviously, I've loved B&B for a long time. I think we remember that podcast. I think we did maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, where I was like, just it's everything is going to zero. Just have like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and BNB. That was like what I just kept harping on. And just, they have such a good business. They've been buying back. They have a very strong buyback and burn coin schedule. And they went insane. They went literally from 44. I don't know what those three lines are, but so you have Binance.
Can you see this? I don't know how it's looking, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
can see it. I see three yellow lines. The Binance
So
coin.
the
Yeah.
yellow line is Bitcoin, the blue line is the market cap, and the green line is dollars. And this is I'm on coinmarketcap.com, and it's just straight, I mean, parabolic, I mean, phew, like $109. Yeah,
Yeah.
man, good for CZ. I mean, he's like,
Yeah. I just can't.
dude.
I can't explain it. The other one of my other favorite coins that did that as well. So is Cardano. So those are my top three picks. I had, for a long time I loved EOS, and I was big into EOS, but that project just didn't go as planned. Hasn't gone as planned yet, right? So I don't want to say like it's a done deal, but it hasn't gone as planned yet. And this is part of the importance of you either stick with what you're gonna go with the important one, Bitcoin, and just leave it at that. Or if you know what you're getting, or if you're gonna go off into the side, then know what you're getting yourself into. Make sure you're spreading your money evenly, you're allocating your capital correctly, because even extremely promising projects can just they just can meander, and maybe nothing happens for them in the way they thought that it was going to happen. This thing is moving so fast, and technology is coming out so quickly that they had an extremely fast chain, but it didn't hasn't so far been what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's definitely unpredictable. It's wild, wild like West, in a way that it's a new frontier. And we
it's
don't.
technology. It's like, and there's so many companies coming up with so many solutions, sometimes smart.
Mhm.
Another thing that I've been deep diving into recently has been Ethereum layer 2 solutions, and DeFi. The whole DeFi movement is it's insane. It's just so much.
Okay, let me stop you there because I do want to get into this, because I think DeFi has a lot to do with this. And that is what's been happening around GameStop, what
Mhm,
happened, basically, I think the internet, the communities on the internet are realizing the power in numbers
mhm.
right now. And so what we're seeing is the collaboration of people to take down certain power structures that have maintained their power through manipulation, through
Yeah,
deception, through regulatory capture. And so you had these hedge funds that were basically short GameStop and certain, AMC and certain other companies who were definitely affected by the coronavirus shutdowns, right? I don't even want to say the coronavirus. I want to say the shutdowns, because here in Florida, we've been open now for 9 months since May, basically. I think we closed April, and then May over here, at least where I'm at, we
uh-huh.
we life was back to normal. And
Yeah. For the
so,
rest of Florida, I think it was officially September when our governor said, "Hey, we're done with this."
yeah,
But yeah, for where you're at, you all had it better than we did.
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I came up to where I'm at, because I was searching for freer land. And
Yeah.
and so yeah, businesses have been thriving ever since. So, and I wouldn't, there was no sign of corona. Like, there's not many signs of corona anywhere except for snowbirds coming down here and wearing their masks. But
Yeah, it's a different place over there for sure.
yeah, and so I do want to make sure that I appropriately, how would I phrase that? Basically, I want to give the right reasons for why these companies are in the toilet. Well, they would have been either way, but basically it's the shutdowns that really hurt them. And all these hedge funds were short. And so they were like, you know what? screw these hedge funds. We're going to buy, and we're going to buy not because of fundamental value, not because of the fundamental value valuations, but because screw the hedge funds.
Well, so that was so that that timeline is very important. And I one of the best persons that I've seen describe it was actually Chamath. He won like a play by play. He actually like had somebody read everything in that Wall Street Bets Reddit and go through it. But even a little bit before that, right? So it's good you bring that up because there's a couple points that I don't want to forget about. One of them being, okay, they shorted 140% of the company. That shouldn't be possible, right? So obviously there's a problem in the system. Right?
Naked shorts.
Yeah. I mean, but whichever, we don't have to get terribly technical. I think pretty much even now, as everybody talks about it, that shouldn't be possible. Whether it was a mistake or whether it was a naked shorts or whatever, you shouldn't be able to short a company more than technically there is company to short.
Yep.
Right. So originally this actually didn't start out as a big fight against the hedge funds. It actually started out with oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. The guy that was in the movie The Big Short, the guy that was playing, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. The hedge fund guy, right?
Okay.
So like in April, he's looking at all these companies and he's saying, hey, GameStop is not in as bad a shape as this short percentage would indicate. They actually have, all these retail outlets. He does his analysis. He ends up buying 15 million shares. That was like way back in April, right? Then in the Wall Street's bet forum, they start looking into it and they come up to the same analysis and they're like, listen, this thing isn't nowhere near as bad as these shorts are saying it is. So it starts gaining speed and then eventually it becomes, and if people can find it, the Chamath's play-by-play review of it is great. But then eventually it does become a, retail versus smart money versus the hedge fund. And that's where, if you actually look at it, that's where that post that says, "This is for you, Dad," goes viral. I don't know if you've seen it. There's a post out there that went completely viral about this guy. He said that this is for you because he remembers during 2008 when his dad lost his business, his brothers, his uncles lost their business, and they were just counting coins in the kitchen because that was
basically he just, I mean, this is a lot of these people still have a memory from the 2008 financial crash.
Yes.
And so this is their Wall Street, this is their Occupy Wall Street, but through the trading, through Robinhood,
a method that can actually have impact. Right. So that was one of the things. That was one of the things. Another one of them punted out. It was like, I remember, this is one of the guys on the forum saying, I remember, being that Occupy Wall Street, and I remember looking at these guys, they're in their apartments, popping champagne, looking at us, and he was like, it was obvious to me that what we were doing, it was just pointless, So it ends up being, retail versus these guys that are seen as the few, and not just the few, it's the few that are controlling the game. Because that's almost like what it feels like is, everybody be saying is the game is rigged. It's always been rigged. We know it. It's controlled by the few and they set the rules to benefit them. And then even when we play by their rules, when we finally go in and we have these mass numbers because everybody's locked up in their house and they're looking for something to do and they're in Robinhood, when we finally even playing by their rules, when we're taking them out, this is what happens, right? Which is that conversation as to whether Robinhood, stop that because they got a call from
it's like
Capital and Citadel or not. And I don't think that That's how it feels, right?
No, if so to me it feels like when you're losing at a video game and you're like, man, screw this, and you go and plug the video game, and your friend is like, hey,
Yeah.
man, what the hell, you know? And so this is where basically they just shut down the game. They said, oh shoot, we're losing. Let's unplug the game. And they screwed all these people over again, right? They couldn't sell their position. It's not only that they unplugged the game, they rigged the game so they could only sell, which is only they rigged the game only in those hedge funds benefit. So that's even worse than unplugging the game, because and so but this is where DeFi comes into the picture. And this is where I was like, okay, I really didn't understand the importance of DeFi before, but now it's a little bit more interesting to me because to have a decentralized financial system, where anyone and everyone can access it, but no one has control, basically the value proposition of DeFi becomes really apparent when you juxtapose it to what happened with the whole GameStop.
And for that, I'm not going to say whether it was that they got a call. Some people are saying that there was a call from the White House. I don't even know that. But what we do know in this system is that definitely Robinhood had to put up the way the system is designed. While a lot of trades are going on, but the spread is slow. It just works out that they can deal with that. What ended up happening with Robinhood as GameStop starts going up, the spreads start being very high. They essentially needed to put, due to regulations, because of the way regulations work, transactions take like 2 days to settle. And then when there's high volatility, people need to put up capital. Robinhood, it seems, they had their liquidity crunch, which is what their CEO didn't want to at first come out and say, even though they said it later, is that they had a liquidity issue. They didn't have that money that they were being asked by the clearinghouses and to put up. So he had to stop trading, and it just looked really bad for them. But when you analyze what happened there, you realize this would never happen on a decentralized system where what is happening is available for everybody to see. So that where the code that runs the system is available for everybody to see. This would never happen there.
Well, okay, I just want to be clear. It might happen there as DeFi gets built out. I mean, there's some funny stuff that's happened in DeFi, but it's just like kind of growing pains, But I would imagine that over time, right, when all the bugs and all the kinks have been worked out, what you have in DeFi is an open, transparent system where the rules are known and no one can control it. And what you're talking about here, where there's a liquidity issue, that wouldn't happen with DeFi because all of that would have been known ahead of time and would have been, the system would have adjusted for it on its own, like all of a sudden, like, maybe you're raising funding requirements, or you're raising the interest rates on margin loans and whatever it is, in order to rebalance that system. And so I just want to make that point that there have been some funny things that have happened with liquidity issues on DeFi, but I just see that as growing pains. But down the line, if we're thinking 5 to 10 years down the line, then what we have is a robust, transparent financial system. Or this is what I'm envisioning. And that is so much better than what we have now, where shady backroom deals could potentially happen,
Yeah. Well, so it's good that you bring that out, because in my mind, I was highlighting other things. And this is why it's important, as we were talking earlier, you said it's simple, just go with Bitcoin, because, if you go with other platforms and you're going into DeFi, there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of things there's a lot of gotchas. And I think you're probably referring to the what happened with MakerDAO.
Mm-hmm.
But just to highlight, there were some issues there. One could say the issues were with liquidity. What happened there was completely different. I
guess my point here is that I just don't want to make it seem like DeFi is this perfect end all be all solution when there's still a lot of
Yeah.
there's still a lot of kinks to be worked out.
Yeah, it's definitely not a perfect solution, and almost everything that's happening in crypto outside of, just buy Bitcoin and hold, is all that innovation is, it's going through its growing pains. But when I said that could never happen in DeFi is because what I meant to say specifically was the setup that happened in GameStop, what led to that disaster, would not happen in DeFi. Because number one, everything is not handled through, human institutions, is handled through code. So even in the MakerDAO scenario, for example, you knew exactly what happened there.
Yeah.
It all
Yeah.
happened in code. There's
Yeah.
no,
That's
there was no possibility that anybody thought, oh, maybe Vitalik called and he did. No. There was none of that. We knew exactly what happened there.
I get what you're saying now. Like it's definitely the transparency, right? There's not this human element where we have to trust. You can if something does go wrong, you can kind of look at what happened.
Where it happened. It's like,
Yeah.
that's in the code. This person ended up walking off with $8 million for zero.
Yeah.
It's essentially what happened, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a completely different scenario, and this does hark back a little bit to what we said earlier. If you want to get into crypto and you haven't put in, as they say, your 10,000 hours or whatever it is to become a master, just go with a sure thing. But there is also a lot of innovation in DeFi, in Ethereum, in layer 2 solutions, and in GameStop in particularly. What happened there would not happen in DeFi, that particular problem. And that's why, folks like Novogratz and so on, they were highlighting the fact that those particular issues on this side, they would not happen.
Yeah. So listen, I think we're coming up here on an hour. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we close this out?
We covered a lot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a good crypto rundown. I'd love to have you on again and go over. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be so much more excitement happening here. I feel like this is just the beginning. 2021 is going to be wild. So
yeah, for sure. I personally, I am deep diving into DeFi right now.
Yeah, I would love to get you. I'm not, but like I said, I have a now renewed that's curiosity about it.
I think it's gonna go. I think it's really gonna go mainstream within what I see. Unfortunately, are so. Here's what I want. What I want to say. I think due to an unfortunate set of events, is very possible that DeFi goes mainstream. It is very popular right now. There's over like a 1.5 million users. They have like 30+ billion locked up in capital. But I think this has the possibility to go mainstream, where like people in particular are talking about DeFi and staking, because what I think what's going to happen, and it's very possible with all this money that's being put out there, and if the economy doesn't recover as fast as possible, or as fast as people think it will, regular folks are going to look for a way to get return on their money, right? And what's getting out there, which is how do I get return on my money, is being DeFi. I've already had several people talk to me about DeFi, regular people, retail folks that don't even know that much about crypto, because it's giving them yields. So I think that over this year, it's going to be even bigger.
Just going back, well, it's not DeFi, but it's still finance. This is something that I just started thinking about and coming across people talking about, which is interesting, is the fact that Bitcoin, because it's so pristine collateral, that you're going to be able to not take out loans on your Bitcoin. Right now you can, but it's at a high interest rate. But as it becomes more and more solidified as this pristine collateral, you'll be able to take out loans for very low interest rates, because it's such pristine collateral. Again, I just keep on saying the same thing.
That's a great point. Yeah. And I'll tell you another thing. So there are ways that people are using right now, right? Because Bitcoin is the one that has most of the market cap. People already have a lot of Bitcoin. of staking Bitcoin. And when you say staking Bitcoin, you're like, how is that? You can't stake on Bitcoin. There's not a proof of stake chain. And also,
Uh-huh.
what they're doing it is they're wrapping it. You know, you have wrapped BTC or you have Ren BTC. They're coming over into the Ethereum side and they're using it in all these DeFi mechanisms. And
It's gonna be wild, dude.
very fascinating, all that stuff
It,
that's going on. People making a lot of money, just yield.
oh,
You get to keep your Bitcoin, you get to get your yields. Obviously, there's that technology side that there is that risk that people aren't aware of where crazy stuff could happen, like what happened with MakerDAO. So, I don't want to say it's all positives and no negatives, but it is just happening because people
dude,
are looking for that yield.
it's in a world where you have an overinflated stock market, right? Which is way out of touch.
People are looking for a way.
Yeah, the valuations are just way out of touch with what's economic reality, right? And in a world where you're getting negative interest rates and where your bank account, their savings are getting less than like 25 basis points, and then you have something like, let's just say it's BlockFi, which is not DeFi, but it's still a financial institution, which is offering 8% on your USDC and 6% on your BTC, which I think is only going to go higher as demand for Bitcoin increases. You're only going to get more yield out of that. And then you have DeFi also offering you all these unique, mechanisms for, extracting yield out of your capital. It's a black hole. It's like a huge, and you're gonna see the world's capital be attracted to cryptocurrency in a way that we've never seen before. 8% on USDC, 6% on BTC. Some of these yield farming. I mean, I don't know what they're getting, but I know people are making ridiculous amounts of money right now. So yeah,
I'm fascinated by it.
And it's only
anything we should talk about. I think next time, I think it should be that.
Okay, let's do that. So listen, I want to close this off real quick. I've been following Bitcoin for a long time, and I had to question myself a lot because there were all these experts that just doubted Bitcoin and would just, it really made me have to like trust myself. And this is what I'm going to tell people is that when it comes to anything, all these experts right now are being exposed as basic frauds. A lot of them who think they know what they know, but don't realize they don't know. And so
a lot of them is like, they're domain experts in a field which is not being talked about.
Yeah.
So you may be a domain expert in the legacy field, but now we're talking about some new technology, and you just don't know this. So some of them, I think, I don't know how much fraud those experts are in there. A lot of them, they are part of the system, but a lot of them just.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that they're malicious, but it just raises the point that, hey, we're entering a new frontier. And, a lot of these experts, they were experts in a time where it was, they had expertise in one field and, and they gained their
research. Do your own research.
Do your own research. So I'm going to play this here. I like it. It's one of my favorite memes.
Okay,
memes.
Yeah, I don't think the audio is coming through, but.
Oh, it's not? Can you not hear it?
I cannot hear it, no.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but I kind of get the gist of it. He's just looking at Bitcoin go down and.
He's basically saying, damn, I don't know how to get the audio to play. Next time I'll figure it out. But basically it's he's just, I forgot who this guy is, but he's basically just saying, Bitcoin is going to zero.
There's been plenty of those, and even, one of our heroes back in the day, he finally flipped, but Peter Schiff was on that bandwagon for as well.
He's still no, he hasn't flipped. No, he's still no
Bitcoin now, isn't he?
No, man. His son is over here like on Twitter making fun of him, which is hilarious. I mean, but yeah, Peter Schiff, he's still, dude. You should see all the tweets that he tweeted out about Elon investing in. Oh my god!
But anyways, and that's. I guess it goes to the point that I'm saying. A lot of it is I don't think he's a fraud or anything. He's a domain expert in something, and sometimes your old habits and your ways of being from making progress, and that applies to everybody's
I don't know.
life.
I think Peter, I lost a lot of respect for Peter because a lot of his arguments, they're incongruent. They're just not, they're the same arguments you can make for gold. And like, of course, there are arguments on why Bitcoin could fail, but we're talking about likelihood and we're talking about, it just needs a lot more nuance than, oh, they could shut off the world's electricity and there goes your Bitcoin. And it's like, yeah, well, if they do that, we got a lot more bigger problems than Bitcoin. You know what I mean? But as of right now,
Spend a good bit of time like thinking about that, and I think I have a point that I probably want to talk about more next time. And it's just something that hit me, and it's like, as new money is coming up, new money itself, aside from being a discovery, it's also an entrepreneurial exercise. Like, for example, sure, gold has been around for whatever thousands of years, but like, how do you know there aren't like that other people can't make diamonds or any of the other stones? Like, how do you know that? Like, how did people know that back then? It's like, it's an entrepreneurial exercise for you to accept this stone that you really don't know how much more is out there, or anybody else can make it. Because sure, now we know metals are extremely difficult to make. They're made in this ridiculous conditions out in the universe somewhere. But what about stones and diamonds and those things? And there's all other kinds of stones that literally have very little value. So it started to dawn on me that new money itself is an entrepreneurial exercise. And what we're seeing and this is what these guys don't get, is that what we're seeing with Bitcoin, yeah, it's technology, but it's also new money, and it's also an entrepreneurial exercise. And we're seeing it play out, right? So Bitcoin is already the main one, but you have all the other ones where they may end up also being money, and that's an entrepreneurial exercise that's being decided out in the marketplace. And I think they don't get that. I think that's an insight.
Oh yeah, they're very limited on their idea of what money is and where money is.
It's hard stuff, man. It's not easy.
Yeah. No. Hey, listen.
Credit, you got it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. I look back on that and I'm like, I listened to an old podcast that I did just with a buddy of mine. I'm like, holy cow! I front ran Elon Musk. That's all I'm gonna say.
Elon Musk. Yeah.
So
definitely a lot to talk for next time.
All right, man. And listen, this was so great, man, and love having you on. Let's if you want to come on and talk about DeFi, let's do it.
All right, good deal.
All right, Alain, man. Have a good day.
Same, likewise.
All right, bye.